Yo, what's up? Welcome inside the opening line party, Elite Fantasy Sports Network. Corey and Benny. Benny, we were just talking before the show started. Last night, if I would have bet, I'd have been on the Dodgers team total. They ended up scoring 9 runs, and I would have been on the WNBA over last night.
The over last night. So why were we switching it up? What happened last night that we're switching it up?
They dropped the number all the way down to 148. Minnesota and Seattle played last week. They combined for 161 points. They scored 161 points again last night.
So, it's actually interesting because we talked about this last week, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna have to start looking into, the WNBA stats and stuff like that. And the average team in the WNBA is scoring about 70, 75 points, somewhere in there. So, you multiply that by 2 because each team scores that. You're looking at like 150 should be like a baseline kind of number, right?
Not 160, not 167 where it was at to start the season.
And that's basically what I noticed when you mentioned this. I'm looking at all these 160s that were coming in last week were the totals, and I'm like, well, if they're averaging 150, like they're off by a good 6 to 8% on some of these totals. But then I went to go bet them, and I noticed exactly what you just said, is that they had dropped them down into I think the one game was 148, the other game was like a 150 or so. Yeah. And then I'm like looking at the numbers, I'm like, all right, well, that's kind of where it should be. So this goes back to what we were talking about last week about trends, right? Like when you find a trend, exactly, you find a trend and you get it, you have to start banging that right away because it's not going to last long. Whether it be like points that somebody's scoring or rebounds somebody's scoring in a basketball game, whether it be like strikeouts or runs being scored in baseball, or like you're talking about here in basketball, like with a total number, the total number on these games, these trends don't last long. Vegas is going to make the adjustment eventually. So when you notice something and you notice that it's off, you got to kind of hammer it and hammer it and hammer it and do it until it doesn't work anymore. Once it stops working, that's when you have to sit back and reassess and say, okay, was my analysis of it wrong, or has the numbers caught up with the analysis where there's no more value in? And out in the 150 range, Corey, I don't think the value is there really anymore, and just bang the unders blindly. So I'm glad you put the over and got it.
You can't hit the unders blindly. Especially they haven't released today's numbers yet. So whatever that number is something that you might be able to throw in a parlay with the big basketball game tonight, the one in the NBA. But before we get into that stuff, I want to talk a little fantasy football. Obviously, fantasyguru.com draft kit now available. Fantasy Guru site, Jeff Mans, myself, the whole crew, getting it done. Rankings are already out. So getting you ready for the upcoming fantasy football season. You got to think you're going to go away for the 4th of July. When you come back, you're going to get an email about your league forming up. So there you go right there. So we want to make sure that you have the best information that is possible. But yeah, I want to go through and talk about a couple of with you right quick. A couple of probably maybe like some wide receiver 2 types.
Okay.
Maybe wide receiver 2, maybe wide receiver 3 types. Get your opinion on some of these guys. What do you think about Jarvis Landry's situation this year in Cleveland? Obviously, Odell Beckham comes in town. They got some studs all across that offense. I told you, ever think about what Marshall Faulk told me about Baker Mayfield and Jarvis Landry?
No, what happened?
If you remember last season when Jarvis Landry, when Baker Mayfield took over the job, Jarvis Landry's numbers started dropping.
Yep. I was about to mention this, so go ahead.
So I asked Marshall Faulk, why does numbers start dropping? And he was like, because Baker Mayfield can't see him. Because Mayfield's a short.
Mayfield is short and Landry's short as well.
Landry's short, so Mayfield wasn't able to find him on the field. And I was like, wow, that's real. It was just that simple. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, there definitely might be something to it. And honestly, that's what I was about to mention to you, is that Landry's numbers, if you looked at last year, because we noticed this in DFS, and that's why we stopped playing them, like Baker and Landry was not really the matchup that you wanted to put together. That wasn't like his favorite receiver. It wasn't the guy that he was going to. There's a lot of things here that make me nervous about Jarvis Landry, right? So one of the things that, and again, I forget, one of the analytics nerds with the NFL did this study. I want to say it was Josh ADHD, or who used to do some work with us over here, but I could be wrong. But either way, the whole point of the study was, how do wide receiver ones react to another wide receiver one being added to the team? And that was basically the idea of the study, is that, when a team goes out and gets a big-time wide receiver.
You're getting real sophisticated now.
Oh, no, that's what I'm saying. These guys with these numbers, they're pretty good, some of them. If you know the right guys to look at who know how to look at the numbers and break them down the right way, you can get some good insight out of this. But basically what he did is he looked at teams that picked up another, big-time wide receiver one, and the effects that it had on the wide receiver one that was already there. And basically what happens in these situations is one guy's production always suffers.
Yeah.
So when you look at the Browns now, they picked up Odell Beckham. So this is the perfect example of it because it's a wide receiver one coming in on a team where Landry already was the wide receiver one. What tends to happen is you still have a big dog in your offense. So instead of both of these guys kind of splitting the workload equally, you still wind up getting one big dog and then the other guy takes the secondary role. When I look at this team, to me, it looks like Odell Beckham, for a numerous amount of reasons, is going to be the big dog.
Yeah.
Which means that statistics show that Jarvis Landry is very likely to take a hit. And we saw that when Baker came in, he took a hit already. They have other weapons, like you mentioned. You got the good running backs in the backfield right now. You have a nice tight end on this team. There's a lot of different things that make me very nervous about Jarvis Landry this year.
I feel basically the same way, Benny. He's going to really have to come as a discount. If I'm going to draft him, I'm talking about right now he's going about round 6. I probably want him 2 rounds later than that. In round 8, he's probably never going to slip to that point. As a 6-rounder, it's not bad, but I'm still filling out, important pieces of my roster. And I don't think Jarvis Landry is going to be a guy I can depend on and count on every week. I feel like he's going to be one of those players where, if he's a better for a best ball guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, because he'll have that big 8 or 10 catch week for 100-something yards. Again, he's never been a big touchdown guy, right? That's always kind of been a knock on him. He's more of an underneath, more of a possession receiver, not a big target in the red zone. That's not really his thing. So guys like that are relying on targets and catches and don't get into the end zone and are going to be, possibly taking a hit in production this year, that's not the kind of guy I want to target. Now, let me ask you a question. Around the 6th round, because I've only done one draft so far. I'm not going to lie to you. I'll ramp my stuff up in July and August. But I was able to get Robert Woods in the 6th round of one draft that I was in. I would much rather have Woods over Landry. Is that 2 guys that are going in the same place, or has Woods been going much ahead of Landry?
No, Woods is going in about the 4th round.
All right, so getting him in the 6th round of a 12-teamer, I got to steal, basically.
That was excellent right there. You know what I'm saying? That's the kind of value you can get this time of year. I'll start with 2 local guys, Jarvis Landry or Golden Tate.
I'll go Jarvis Landry just because I trust his quarterback way more.
I feel you on that one. I think if it was systems and schemes, not even talent-wise, obviously Jarvis Landry, but I'm looking at targets. And I think Golden Tate will have more targets, but those targets are going to be coming from Eli Manning, who interception yesterday.
Do you think Tate is going to be their slot guy?
I think they at least continue to play Shepard in the slot.
Because, where do you put Shepard then?
I think you continue to play Shepard in the slot.
That's what I'm saying. So if Tate's going to be on the outside, the whole point of the high target guy is the high target guy is usually the guy in the slot, right? Mm-hmm. Because you're running a lot of those shorter routes, those 5-yard routes, those ends, things like that.
You run quarterback-friendly routes.
Exactly, especially for a guy like Eli who hasn't had a very good line, even though the Giants made some moves this offseason. The slot guy is usually like an outlet, oh shit, the blitz is coming, I need to get rid of this. He's in front of your face, he's in the middle of the field. Those are quote unquote the easiest throws in football to make, right?
Yeah.
If you got Tate on the outside right now, I can't imagine he's still going to be running. He's still going to be getting as many targets being on the outside. If you have a rocket-armed quarterback that can get the ball out there to him, you can still do those kind of things on the outside with the receiver. Eli Manning is not a rocket-armed quarterback. Exactly. I don't want Eli throwing the ball to the sidelines 10 times a game to Golden Tate because 1 or 2 of those is getting picked and
getting intercepted. And it's going back the other direction. You know what I'm saying? Daniel Jones will get this job at some time this year. People out of Giants OTAs are saying that Eli Manning is washed up. You know what I'm saying? It's not getting any better.
The Giants OTAs? People sitting in this freaking podcast right now have been saying this for 6-8 months. How about for 4 years? I was going to say 2-3 years.
Exactly. Jarvis Landry or Will Fuller?
Will Fuller.
Yeah.
Well, I love a healthy Will
A
Fuller.
healthy Will Fuller is a beast.
Oh man, but that's the problem with Will Fuller is you're taking the chance on injury risk because every year this guy comes down with an injury. So,
No doubt. But scared money don't make money, Benny. You know what I'm
well,
saying?
that's true. I mean, if you're playing in a league, I'm looking to win my league, right? I don't want to be a 500 team that makes the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the Cincinnati Bengals for the last decade. I'll take those chances.
No doubt. I agree with you on that one too. I would definitely I'm willing to take a chance. Like I said, I wouldn't go all the way in 100% ownership, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it will definitely be some Will Fairs on some of my fantasy teams. And I wouldn't even mind him being on a team where I can put a couple $100 on. I think he's that good of a young player and he just needs to get it going with his quarterback. Golden Jarvis, Landry, or your boy Robbie Anderson?
I mean, I would love to say Robbie Anderson. You know me, but here's my thing: is Robbie Anderson going in the 6th to 8th round? Because Robbie Anderson to me is always a guy that I can look at 12th, 13th round and get him that much later.
Robbie Anderson's in round 6.
Oh, fuck out of here! Are you kidding me? I'm not taking again.
This is like with some sharps. This draft board that I'm looking at, maybe in by the time. But Benny's not like you play with scrubs. You know what I'm saying? He's going to rise because people are onto him.
I mean, the last 2 years I've gotten him in double-digit rounds. In double-digit rounds, I love it because he's got the deep ball upside. But let's face it, I mean, even last year, he had one big game where he had the 2 touchdowns.
I know.
Every other game, though, I mean, it's not like this guy's getting 7-8 targets a game. It's not like he's consistently coming down with 100 yards. He's a deep threat. He's a Deshaun Jackson. Like, that's who Robbie Anderson is. If you want me to take Deshaun Jackson in the 10th round, I'll do it. Deshaun Jackson in the 6th round, I'm not doing it. I got to be honest, in the 6th round, I'm probably not taking Jarvis Landry or Robbie Anderson.
All right, let me tell you who went in the 6th round of this draft right here.
Go ahead. Is this a 15-team or 12-team? What do you got?
It's 12-team PPR. You got some cats in here that can play. I'm trying to think. Okay, this round goes this way. I want to make sure I'm on the right side of the round.
Yeah, to go the right direction. Yeah, go ahead.
It starts with Sammy Watkins.
I would rather have Watkins than both of those guys.
I agree with you. Then Jordan Howard.
Okay, I mean, whatever. I've got to see what other running backs are on the board, but okay, whatever.
Next pick of the 6 was Tyler Lockett.
Lockett ahead of Landry and Robbie Anderson?
Yep.
I don't hate that because I really don't think that what's his name? DK Metcalf, right? That was the rookie they got.
No, yeah, that dude is one of those. Benny, I guarantee you, mark my word, DJ Metcalf is a workout warrior. Looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. I guarantee you that's what DK Metcalf's going to be.
I mean, I don't know what he eventually turns himself into, but I don't think he does much this year. Like, I really don't. So, like, people that are like, oh, well, he's going to step into the role that's there and the targets without both. No, I don't think that's the case. So, I don't mind Lockett ahead of both of those guys. I think that's fine.
Yeah, I agree. And then Lockett was very good last year, and I missed it. And I think he can come back and have a good year this year. The next guy that went off the board, Benny, is somebody that's interesting to me because I'm starting to hear reports that he's going to be the lead dog. That's Tevin Coleman.
You know, I've seen those same reports, and that could be really, really big. Like
Especially in the 6th round. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. A 6th round Tevin Coleman, if he's going to get the bulk of the carries, because let's face it, I mean.
The Kyle Shanahan system, a dude that Kyle Shanahan has worked with before.
So whenever Devonta Freeman was hurt, Tevin Coleman was like an autoplay for me in DFS up until like this year. Because this year when they knew that he was kind of moving on, they didn't give him the bulk of the carries like they had done in years past. Like in years past when Devonta Freeman got hurt, I always looked at Atlanta as if either Freeman or Coleman is out, I was all in on the other guy.
Yeah.
The other guy would get 20-plus touches. He'd catch the ball out of the backfield, which Tevin Coleman can do. He would get the carries. He would get the goal line work. The other guy put up 25, 30 fantasy points every time that the other one wasn't playing.
Yeah.
So if you're going to give Tevin Coleman that role full-time right now, to me, Tevin Coleman would be a 2nd or 3rd round pick if you told me he was going to be getting 20 touches a game. Because we've seen him do it. And listen, he does everything that we want for fantasy, right? He runs the ball pretty well. He'll pick up some yards. He's great out of the backfield catching the ball, so he gets us those PPR points.
You have no problem on the goal line.
And he's going to score touchdowns.
Yep. And he's in a system that's friendly for him, a place that he wanted to be. He did have suitors, but he went to San Francisco with all those people in that backfield. He still went there. So Kyle Shanahan must have been telling him something to make him come out there. Or the relationship that he has with Shanahan is something he wanted to revisit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, that's a pretty balanced offense, too. You got a good quarterback coming back in Jimmy Garoppolo, who's solid. Whether you love him or not, you got to admit he's at least solid. You know, he's not in the bottom half of the league in quarterbacks. He's definitely in the top, even if you don't put him in the top 10 like some people do. You got a great tight end in Kittle, arguably one of the best, arguably the best in the game. You know, I mean, he's up there with the 2 or 3 guys that you can kind of mention.
I tell you where he's going in drafts to blow your mind.
Why, is he dropping or is he going like real high up?
He's in the 3rd round.
Again, I'm not going to argue against it. I don't think it's that crazy. He's the best receiver on that team. He was consistent all year. He gets you a bunch of catches. He gets you the targets. He gets you the you look at the tight end rankings, Corey. After like the first 3 or 4 guys, the drop off.
It's the first 3, and then after that, you have to find one late.
You're absolutely right. Like if you don't get one of those, you know, if you don't get Kelsey, Ertz, or Kittle, you're basically better off waiting around 10, round 12, and just, you know, seeing which one of those guys has a chance to turn into this year's Eric Ebron.
No doubt, and that's basically what you're 100% correct on that. The next person to go off the board, Benny, in this round was Deshaun Watson as the 3rd quarterback selected.
I don't think that's crazy either. Listen, I've always liked Watson, and I've said I think he's an even better fantasy quarterback than people give him credit for, because they run a lot of those deep routes. They run a lot of those crossing routes with guys like Fuller and Kiki Kuti, who can make those catches over the middle and take him for big gains. You know, obviously Hopkins is an absolute beast. And then you also get some stuff with his legs, because Watson is a guy who can run too. So you're getting the rushing upside, you're getting the deep throwing upside. And again, I don't know if they're going to change it around, but with Lamar Miller there in years past, they've been a team that's thrown the ball more to get touchdowns than run it there. You know, when you have a back that you're giving it to all the time inside the 20, that affects the offensive production for the passing game. But for the Texans, the way they've kind of been doing it with Watson there, they've actually been throwing the ball more to get into the end zone as opposed to running. So anytime you have a quarterback that's in a system that throws it more, like a Tom Brady being another kind of situation where they throw it into the end zone more than they run it since, like Garrett Blount days, those are the kind of guys you want for fantasy, because that's when you can get 3 or 4 touchdowns in a game.
No doubt. So, Benny, you nailed that one right there. So, the Watson at that point in that round, I don't have no beef with. Next is your boy Robbie Anderson. Then comes Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry as the fourth tight end off the board is Hunter Henry.
Yo, your boy Stephen A. Smith would be all about it. He had such a good game last season.
Is he the 4th tight end, Benny?
This is why I'm sitting here like huffing, because I'm thinking to myself, like, you know, I would still rather take an Eric Ebron. Like, I would still rather go to. I'm trying to think. Like,
it's another guy. It's a guy coming up in a few picks. It's probably the name that you're trying to get off.
I don't think Hunter Henry is. I don't think I go 6th round Hunter Henry, number 4 tight end overall.
After that, he played, but like he was rumored to play down the stretch last year in the playoffs. He may have played in that last playoff game. I don't remember, or may have practiced that week. I want to see it first. You know what I'm saying?
I would agree. If
he's going that high, I'm not going to buy it. After Hunter Henry, one of my favorite players, a guy that I will have shares of once again this year. I was on him last year. It worked out pretty good. I'm going back this year for seconds, and that's going to be my man Tyler Boyd of the Cincinnati Bengals. Tyler Boyd can play. I know everybody says I'm crazy and I'm wilding. Tyler Boyd is going to become that team's number 1 wide receiver. Not because he's a more talented player than A.J. Green, but because he's going to be more durable than A.J. Green.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, A.J. Green gets hurt all the time, right? And when A.J. Green was hurt, Tyler Boyd stepped in there and
he was doing it with A.J. Green on the field too.
That's true. And that's the other thing too, is when you're the number 2 guy, if the number 1 guy is drawing all the attention, that means you're single covered all the time. Yep. And listen, people forget, like, Tyler Boyd followed Larry Fitzgerald at the University of Pittsburgh. He was a very, very good college receiver. Like, they went from Larry Fitzgerald to Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd was being talked about as like a, breakout star in the NFL when he was coming out of college.
Yeah.
This is a guy that can play. It's not like he's never been good. the thing is, he was always like he was injured earlier in his career, so he didn't have that explosion onto the scene, and he's always been the secondary receiver there. You look at that offense, you figure Cincinnati's not going to be that great this year. So they're going to be playing from behind, so that's going to be more passes going out there. If you take the A.J. Green not being able to stay healthy for a full season thing into account too, there's a lot of potential for Tyler Boyd to have another big year because when he was healthy last year, he put up big numbers. This was a guy that was on my daily fantasy teams a lot of weeks last year, and he produced. So I like Tyler Boyd. I'm fine with that. I would rather have Boyd than Landry.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. The next guy to go off the board is the name that you were talking about, Benny. It's Evan Ingram. That's a tight end I would take over Hunter Henry. That's what my guess is one of the guys you were thinking about.
Yeah, that he would probably be somebody that I'd rather have. I mean, again,
his numbers go up without Odell. When Odell Beckham was not in the games last year, Ingram was the guy that really benefited from it.
Yeah, and I mean, again, you're going to have a rookie quarterback in there, so at some point we're assuming, I don't know, maybe they keep this Eli fantasy going, but either way, you usually look at a tight end as a security blanket for a young quarterback.
Benny, somebody needs to do a study on that. I think that's an urban legend.
What, the tight end being a security blanket?
That it's the tight end is the best friend of the young quarterback, and the young quarterback or the backup quarterback's going to throw to the tight end. I think that's urban legend.
I mean, again, I'm
not going to do the study.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm not about to sit down and crunch those numbers, but I'm sure somebody will, and I'll look up and see if I can find it. But I mean, it makes sense just intuitively, right? You're thinking about young quarterbacks; they get a little bit antsy in the pocket.
Bam, first guy, yeah.
Coming, again, same thing about the slot receiver, right? Like these are the guys that are right in front of your face, easiest throws to make, quickest throws to relieve pressure. So that's something that I'd be looking at. But you're right. When Odell Beckham was out last year, guys like Evan Ingram, guys like Shepard, those are guys who saw their targets go up. So Ingram is a guy who you would expect to kind of be a bigger part of it. Listen, we know Eli Manning cannot throw the ball down the field.
Yeah.
He can't. He just can't do it. So you got to think that any of these underneath guys are going to get more targets in that situation. You figure teams are going to start having that linebacker kind of sitting out there on Saquon Barkley so he doesn't have his 10, 12 catch games out of the backfield. That should open up the middle for, whoever it is that happens to be roaming there.
There you go. The next pick was Jarvis Landry. And then we have the next to last pick of the 6th round of this draft is Dante Pettis.
Yeah, I like Pettis.
I like him better than Jarvis Landry.
I think there's a lot more upside there.
Yep.
And again, I mean, it feels like we're hating on Jarvis Landry, and we're not.
Just the situation is not.
It's not.
He's going to trust me. If you're a Cleveland Brown fan, you're going to be happy that Jarvis Landry's on your team. If you are a Jarvis Landry fantasy owner, you're going to be like, I'm going to have to bench this cat.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't Miami. This isn't Jarvis Landry being the main weapon on the offense and getting 15 targets anymore. Like, that's not his role. So if that's who you're thinking of Jarvis Landry as, Jarvis Landry to me, Corey, you tell me if I'm off on these projections. I think he sees 6-7 targets a game.
Yeah. Makes
4 to 6 catches for 50 yards or so. Like, that's 9 fantasy points. And he's not a big touchdown scorer, so I'll say I'll give him 4 touchdowns on the year, and that might even be a little bit high. So if that's what you're looking at out of him, what do we say, 4 or 5 catches a game, 16 games, 40, you're talking 65 catches, 50 yards a game, 65 catches, 800 yards, 4 touchdowns.
So if you get those numbers right there, that when it comes to your fantasy team, that's a player. If you start 3 wide receivers, that's a player that should be somewhere in that first man up off the bench. You know what I'm saying?
Wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 range. That's the numbers that he projects to put up in this offense here. Now, again, this offense is going to score a lot of points. I think this offense is going to be very good, but it's going to be spread out. You have a good tight end. You have good running backs. And again, he's the number 2 wide receiver. He's not the number 1. He's not the guy that I expect to, be the main guy in this offense this year. So, really, I just think the price is a little high on him.
There you go right there. Sorry, Jarvis Landry. We did not mean to get on you. The last pick of this round, Benny, was Rashad Penny. I don't understand that, to be honest with you.
I was just about to say the same thing. That I mean,
dude has never been healthy. This is just a bad pick. Dude has never been healthy. Seattle is. If I'm Seahawks, I'll take Penny. Not in the 6th round though.
Well, that's what I was gonna say.
Other than Russell Wilson, And Tyler Lockett, it's like it's nothing here.
Yeah, I don't really love this offense outside of Russell Wilson. And that's why I love Russell Wilson, because Wilson will be the key focal point of this offense, whether it's with his legs or with his arm or throwing it. If I'm going to take any piece of this offense, he's the guy that's the most predictable to me. Because you're going to have games. I mean, look at last year with them. You had Tyler Lockett games. You had David Moore games, right? Like on the outside, there were multiple guys who stepped up at various points with the one dependable piece being Russell Wilson. So, like, as a fantasy player, Russell Wilson was a guy who I played naked as a DFS guy. I never stacked him with wide receivers. I never put him with anybody there because you don't know where it's going to go. And even if he does, like Russell Wilson could throw for 300 yards with 5 different receivers each having 50 yards.
Yep.
So nobody having a big upside, but Wilson will get there because he spreads the whole thing around. So that's kind of the way I look at the Seattle offense.
Fantasy football is coming. Fantasy Guru site, fantasyguru.com is the place to be. You might want to get in there and hop in there now and get ready to win your league in 2019. Benny, tonight we get back to the action in the NBA Finals. Toronto Raptors are in the Bay Area tonight. They go out to Oakland. Warriors laying 4.5. That's where the number's at right now. It opened up at 6. Got bet down. Dubs money minus 196 on the money line. So the book is telling you we think they're going to win the game. I'm thinking they're going to win the game by more than 4.5 points. The total is 213.
So I'm on the Raptors. At 5.5 is where I got down on them. Was it actually 6? It was actually 6 at the open. I didn't see 6. I wish I saw that. I would have taken that. So I'm on the Raptors at 5.5, and I'm actually sprinkling a little bit on the Raptors money line here.
Ooh, interesting.
So let me just break this down this way.
Money line at 166.
Yeah, I actually got on it at 180, so I'm good with that. That's fine by me. At least I already have 15 cents in my favor, so that's not bad. But here's the way I'm looking at it, right? Like, okay, Kevon Looney's out.
Yep.
Right? So, again, Kevon Looney, not the biggest difference maker, but he's played good minutes on this series. You know, obviously with Boogie playing really well last game, you didn't notice the impact of him not really being there towards the end. And they also got minutes from Andrew Bogut. I mean, again, those guys are okay. I don't think that's a huge downgrade, but I think it's a small downgrade. Here's the big thing for me, though. Klay Thompson is questionable tonight.
Yeah.
If Klay Thompson and Durant is very unlikely to play from what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's no Durant, there's no Klay Thompson. Who's going to score on that team outside of Steph Curry?
Well, it's going to have to be a hell of a game for Steph Curry and Draymond Green. You're going to have to Quinn Cook's going to have to step up and hit some shots. You know what I mean? And some of those guys that we talked about after game number 2. But you make an excellent point. The Klay's availability is very important tonight.
Not only his availability, but his availability and his
health.
Ability to play. Yeah, like his health on the floor. Like, it's one thing, like we saw this with Boogie in game 1. It's one thing for a guy to be available. It's another thing for a guy to be impactful. You know what I mean? Like Boogie in game 1 was available, but he didn't really do anything. Boogie in game 2 made an impact. If Klay is going to play and be able to make an impact, because let's face it, if Klay didn't have the first half that Klay had in that last game, they would have been down big and wouldn't even have had a chance to make a cut. Like the 18-0 run would have just made it a tie score instead of putting them up 10 in that third quarter there. So really I'm looking at, is Klay going to be fine if they say he's going out? I mean, Klay said after the last game he's playing. And then you find out 2 days later that they put him on the questionable list. So
when he said after the last game that Klay, when he said after the game that he was playing, old boy said he would have said that if he was dead. You know what I'm saying?
That was Kurt's line. They were like, what do you think about Klay saying no matter what he's playing, it's not that serious? And Steve Kerr was like, dude, if he was dead, he still wouldn't tell me that he's fine and he's playing in game 3. So that was a good line by Kerr, actually. I did see that.
So what do we got, Benny? You're on the Raptors. What do we got? What do you think of this total, 213? This is where the total has been for the most part. I think it was game 1 was 214. Game 2 was 213. Game 3 is 213. If I'm not mistaken, game 2, the final score finished at 213.
Yeah, so Kevin Adams and I were talking about this the other game for game 2, right? And he was on the under, I was on the over. We both cashed. So the number has been pretty good.
The number jumped?
No, the number was 213, and he was on the under, I was on the over. We both teased it. I should have started with that. We both teased it. So he teased it up and took the under. I teased it down and took the over. So we both wound up hitting our bets on it, our teasers, because the number was right in the middle. That means that Vegas is kind of on the number, and this number has been right there. I don't think the number can go over if I had to play one of these two sides, I would play the under. The reason I don't think it can go over, Corey, is because of all the injuries, right? Like
exactly. The firepower from Golden State may not be there.
Yeah, this isn't the Golden
State. You can't bet this game until right before tip-off.
Yeah, I agree with that too, 100%, because you need to know about Clay and Durant and all those guys. But without those guys, I don't see Golden State being the 130-point potential scoring team. I don't really see that in the series anyway because of how good Toronto plays defense. But without their whole team there, this isn't the high-powered offense that can score 125 points and win a game 125, 124. You know what I mean? So I'm not big on going for the over in the series. If I had to choose something here, I'd take the under. But really, I think it's a very good number, and there is no shame in not betting what you think a good number is.
There's no problem with laying off of that number right there. You make an excellent point with that one. Now that we are in Dub Nation, now that we're in Oakland, I'm looking at some of these prop bets. DeMarcus Cousins points comes in at 14.5.
So I do think if Clay's out, they're going to need a secondary scorer, right? I think looking for 14 out of Boogie, though, is not the most likely way to go. The guy who I like the most points-wise to have a bigger scoring game here is Draymond.
Okay.
Because you can trust the Draymond minutes, right? Like, in a close game, whether Clay plays or Clay doesn't play, Draymond's going to get 40 minutes. If those guys like Clay and Durant don't play, I trust Draymond to score 12.5 points in 40 minutes more than I trust DeMarcus Cousins to score 15. Because with Cousins, A, you're not getting 40 minutes out of him, and B, at any point in time, he could go after a loose ball like he did in the Portland series or the series before that and come up with a hamstring injury and sit out the rest of the game and end up with 6 or 7 points. So if you're going to take a chance, to me, I would rather take the chance on Draymond, knowing that you're going to have the 40 minutes of court time for him to get to that 13-point number or over.
Draymond over 12.5 comes in on FanDuel. It comes in at minus 120. Mm-hmm. What do you think about Andre Iguodala at over 9.5? You're getting that at even money.
Again, my biggest problem with Iguodala is the minutes aren't as consistent as Draymond's. Like, Draymond and Steph are going to play as many minutes as they can play. They really are. They're going to play 40 minutes each. Draymond usually plays – Iguodala usually plays slightly less. And, again, you also have to worry about the injury thing. The other thing about Iguodala, too, is a lot of the time he's on the floor, he's just standing in the corner.
Yep.
Now, if there's no Clay, you would think that he has to do a little more offensively. So then that would be what really puts me on. If Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant don't play here, I think taking Draymond at even money is a pretty good bet.
What do we think? Kawhi Leonard at 30.5 at minus 105.
I don't think it's crazy. I think it's a good number for him. It's a lot of points, though. Again, when you're looking at these things, I want something that I feel like is more likely to happen than not happen. You know what I mean? Like, I feel Draymond Green scoring 12.5 or more points is more likely to happen than it is to not happen. Kawhi scoring 20, I would be all over. Kawhi at 30, it depends how the game goes. Like, we've seen games where other guys have stepped up and he scores 22 or 24. We've seen other games where guys haven't stepped up and he had to go for 40.
My thought process is a road game. They got to lean on him more.
And I don't disagree with that. But, again, 31 points for Kawhi is a lot of points. That's – again, if we're talking about a total of 213 and you think that, Golden State wins, how many points can you really expect for the Raptors? Maybe 103, 105?
Yep.
So you're thinking Kawhi's going to score 30% of their points? I mean, is that crazy? No, but,
That's a big number.
Big number.
Any other props you think could hit tonight? Anything you looking at?
So, I mean, again, if Klay Thompson is out, you got to think that Steph Curry three-pointers are going to be up. You got to think that, Draymond Green – I like Draymond Green rebounding prop, too. I think it's 10.5.
Yeah.
You know what the Draymond triple-double is for this game? And we said this last week. At least on DraftKings. I haven't looked on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, the Draymond triple-double is only plus 250.
That's crazy.
Yeah. That's like such a low number for it. But to me, I think that
270 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous about the assist because Draymond does get a lot of those assists where, like,
Klay Thompson,
the guys will come running around on the screen and he, like, sets the screen and hands it off to him for the shot or stuff like that. Or, like, he has the ball at the top of the key and they're running off of somebody else for catch and shoots. So those catch and shoot assists are going to be down without KD and Clay on the floor. But I still think the rebounds will be there. And I also think if you have guys like Alfonso McKinney and Quinn Cook firing up shots, they're going to miss more. And more missed shots means more rebounds. And, that helps Draymond out. So I like the Draymond points prop. I like the Draymond rebounds prop. Those are two that I'm looking at. It's kind of tough for me on the Toronto side, right? Because the only guy that you really have faith in is Kawhi Leonard. Everybody else in this team, like we've seen big games from Siakam, we've seen big games from Gasol, we've seen a big game from Lowry, but they never all happen together and they're never consistent. Like one game it's this guy, the next game it's that guy. What I do think, though, Klay Thompson had been guarding Kyle Lowry. I think Lowry points is a good one to look at here because you might end up with more Quinn Cook and Steph Curry on Lowry in this spot. And I don't really think that's a good matchup for either one of them defensively. I think that Kyle Lowry has the advantage there. So Kyle Lowry points is the other thing that I'm kind of looking at here.
That went down to 13.5.
The other reason I like it.
It went down to 13.5. It's sitting at minus 115 right now. As far as the rest of the game goes, the first half, the Warriors are minus 170. The first half total points is coming in at about 105. Once again, that's about right on the number. I would not be surprised if the halftime score is something like 55-50. So somewhere around that is right on the number. First quarter total points, 52.5. Well, that's right on the number too. 52.5. It's no bet. I don't see no bet there.
Talking like 27, 25 or something like that. Like,
there's no bet there. I used to catch these. During the regular season, these shits would be around 58. And I'd be like, 58? There's no way they're going to score 58 points.
Yeah, third quarter maybe, but not first quarter, yeah.
Exactly. I'm like, what? You know what I'm saying? So, but in the playoffs, they got much better and much tighter with these ones right here. So there you go right there. We are up and squared away on that one. Benny is going. He's catching those points. I am going to wait until tip-off. Obviously, I'm going to favor the Warriors more than likely, but I'll wait till tip-off, or maybe I won't hang out, because I probably got to go to the book tonight to bet this one tonight, Benny. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I'll just say this to everybody. Before you go ahead and take my advice on which side of this game to be on, I was on the Warriors in Game 1, and I lost. I was on the Warriors to start Game 2, and then wound up in-game betting the hell out of the Raptors and lost. So far,
that night, Benny.
so far, I'm 0 for 2 on this series. So I might not be the guy that has his finger on the pulse here.
Right quick, WNBA, Chicago Sky and Washington Mystics. Mystics lane 11. I don't know nothing about that. 167. Bet the under.
I'll take the under now. Which game was that?
Mystics
and who?
Mystics and Chicago Sky.
Mystics and Sky, 167. Again, just going on the numbers that we saw, and when the numbers are this high, that seems like a good one for the under.
Yep, Lauren, looking at that right there. Benny got a big piece of chicken to give out.
Big piece of chicken last night is going to go to the Atlanta Braves bats for me. As what? No, you know what? I'm going to give it to the Marlins bats because we didn't get a chance to talk about this, Corey. But my two biggest bets yesterday were the over in the Marlins-Milwaukee game and the Atlanta Braves, who I was all over. I was all over the Braves because I thought Max Fried was a pretty good pitcher, and I thought Steven Brault was a piece of garbage. Turns out that Max Fried was the garbage. Steven Brault was the better pitcher in that start. But the bullpen fell apart for Pittsburgh, and Atlanta wound up getting the win. So completely wrong analysis by me, but I still wound up cashing. The other bet that I had was the over in the Milwaukee-Miami game because I'm like, listen, Chase Anderson's not a good pitcher, and I expect Milwaukee to put up a lot of runs. Milwaukee absolutely sucked last night. I don't even know if they scored. But the Marlins put up 15 and got the over for me all by themselves. So my big piece of chicken goes to the Marlins because I was completely wrong in the analysis of both of those games yesterday and somehow walked away with money because I cashed them both.
Nice job. Big piece of chicken right there. My big piece of chicken, I really didn't have no action last night, so really don't really have nobody to give it to. But if you won money on the Marlins bats, on the Marlins, they get the big piece of chicken too.
They're never going to have another day to get the big piece of chicken. It's the Marlins. So we might as well hop on them when they have their 15-run explosion there in Milwaukee.
No doubt about it. For my main man, Benny Corey Parson, the fantasy executive, the opening line, we are out.